For some people, night is not the first time they finally feel calm. It is the first time they can no longer avoid what the quiet lets them hear. A lot of people imagine nighttime quiet as something naturally soothing. They think that when the day ends, when the noise drops, when the world becomes still, the body should finally feel relieved. And sometimes that does happen. But for a lot of overloaded people, the opposite happens. The room gets quieter. The day slows down. The stimulation drops. And instead of feeling peaceful, something inside starts to feel more exposed, more open, more uneasy. Not always in a dramatic way. Sometimes just enough to make you reach for something. Your phone. A video. A podcast. A fan. Music. Background TV. Anything that makes the silence feel a little less wide. A little less close. A little less like you are alone with everything that has been waiting underneath the day. And when people do not understand this, they often judge themselves. They think, why can't I just be in silence? Why do I always need something on at night? Why does the quiet feel worse when this is supposed to be the time I finally rest? But sometimes quiet feels unsafe at night, not because quiet is bad. And not because you are weak. Sometimes it feels unsafe because the end of the day removes the distractions, structure, and momentum that were helping you hold yourself together. And once that buffer drops, a lot of things can start feeling louder. Not outside. Inside. Point 1. Night removes the distractions that were buffering you all day. One of the biggest reasons night can feel hard is that it removes the things that were helping you get through the day. During the day, even if you are tired or overloaded, there is often momentum. There are tasks, messages, schedules, noise, small urgencies, tiny decisions, switching, movement. And all of that does something important. It gives the mind somewhere to go. It keeps attention pointed outward. It keeps certain feelings postponed. Not healed. Not gone. Just postponed. Then nighttime comes. And much of that disappears. There are fewer demands. Fewer interruptions. Less motion. Less structure. Less external noise to keep the system occupied. And suddenly, the things that were quieter all day are not so quiet anymore. Fatigue becomes more noticeable. Tension becomes easier to feel. Loneliness becomes easier to hear. Unfinished thoughts start floating closer. The emotional residue of the day becomes more available. That does not mean night is creating the discomfort. It may simply be removing what was covering it. And when people understand that, the whole experience starts making more sense. Because the problem is not always, why is night so bad? Sometimes the better question is, what was the daytime helping me not feel yet? Point 2. Quiet at night can feel more exposing than quiet during the day. Not all quiet feels the same. And that matters. A quiet moment during the day can feel very different from quiet at night. During the day, even silence often still has context around it. There is light. There is movement nearby. There is a sense that life is still happening. There is still some structure holding the edges of the moment. At night, quiet often feels wider than that. Deeper than that. More open. More final. And for an overloaded nervous system, that can make it feel more exposing. Not necessarily dangerous in a dramatic sense, but emotionally unbuffered. Like there is less between you and everything inside you. Less noise to soften the contact. Less momentum to keep things at a distance. Less outside world holding you up. That is why people can tolerate quiet in some moments, but struggle with it at night. Because nighttime quiet can feel less like a pause and more like direct contact. Direct contact with your own mind. Your own body. Your own thoughts. Your own emotional leftovers. And if your system has been overloaded for a long time, that contact may not feel soothing right away. It may feel too close. Too empty. Too open. Too still in a way that makes what is underneath impossible to ignore. Point 3. Your brain may have learned to associate quiet with contact, not comfort. This is one of the deepest parts of the pattern. After enough nights of quiet bringing up discomfort, the brain can start learning something very specific. It can start learning that quiet does not mean comfort. It means contact. Contact with the thoughts you pushed away all day. Contact with the chest tension you did not have time to notice. Contact with the heaviness that only shows up when everything else stops. Contact with restlessness, loneliness, uncertainty, or low-grade unease. And once quiet starts meaning that, your system does not read it as neutral anymore. It starts preparing against it. Not always consciously. Sometimes very subtly. A slight urge to check your phone. A pull toward background sound. A need to fill the room with something. Not because you are trying to ruin your rest, but because quiet has stopped feeling like an empty peaceful space and started feeling like the moment everything catches up. That changes the emotional meaning of silence. Now silence is not just silence. It is the doorway to what rises when there is nothing left to cover it. And that is why some people do not actually dislike quiet itself. They dislike what quiet has come to mean. What it has come to reveal. What it has trained their body to expect. Point 4. Reaching for noise at night can feel like protection. This is where people often become hardest on themselves. Because they know what they should do. They think they should put the phone down. Turn everything off. Stop scrolling. Stop needing sound. Just be still. Just go to sleep. Just rest. But when quiet feels too open, noise can feel like protection. A small sound in the room. A familiar voice. A fan. A video playing softly. Music. Something that makes the silence less total. Less exposing. Less like being dropped into a wide open space with nothing to hold on to. That does not mean the noise is deeply restoring. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it keeps the system activated in other ways. But that is not why the person is reaching for it. They may be reaching for it because it reduces exposure. Because it helps the room feel less empty. Because it gives the brain something to orient around. Because it makes the person feel less alone with what the quiet is starting to bring up. So if you reach for noise at night, that does not always mean you are weak or addicted to stimulation. Sometimes it means your system is trying to protect you from a feeling of being too unheld in the silence. And that is a much more compassionate and accurate explanation than simple self-blame. Point 5. What helps is not forcing silence, but making night feel less unheld. This matters, because once people realize quiet feels hard at night, they often respond with more force. They try to make themselves tolerate it. They turn the night into another test. Another thing to perform correctly. Another way to fail. And that usually makes the whole thing tighter. Because what an overloaded system often needs is not to be shoved into perfect silence. It needs the night to feel less abrupt. Less unheld. Less emotionally naked. That may mean softer transitions. A slower reduction in input. Gentler signals. More familiarity. A sense of being accompanied into the quiet, not dropped into it. Because when the system feels guided, quiet often becomes more possible. Not easy all at once. Not magically peaceful. But less threatening. Less sharp. Less like a confrontation. And that is a very different goal from forcing yourself to do nighttime right. You may not need to become someone who loves perfect silence immediately. You may just need a gentler way to feel held inside the night. A quieter landing. A softer entry. A little less exposure all at once. Because sometimes the real problem is not the quiet itself. It is how suddenly the quiet removes everything that was helping you cope. Closing. If quiet feels unsafe at night, that does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you are too sensitive. And it does not mean you are bad at rest. It may simply mean that when the day ends, the layers that were buffering you start to fall away. The noise drops. The motion stops. The distractions thin out. And what is left feels closer than your system knows how to comfortably hold. That is not weakness. That is not failure. That is what overload can feel like when the buffer disappears. And once you understand that, you can stop judging yourself so harshly for reaching towards sound, light, or distraction. Because sometimes those things are not the real goal. Sometimes the real goal is to feel less exposed. Less alone. Less suddenly dropped into everything the day was helping you postpone. And that changes the story. Because now the question is not, why am I so bad at nighttime quiet? Now the question becomes, what would help the night feel a little less unheld? And that is a much softer place to begin. At night, what do you reach for first when the quiet starts feeling too open, Your phone, background sound, or more scrolling.